Hey everyone, and welcome back to OntarioCyrptids. I hope you are all having a great day. Last week, someone commented on how they love hearing stories from Ontario, so today I'm going to deliver on that request. I have 3 great stories, all from the province of Ontario, which is what got me started believing in Sasquatches in the first place. As I mentioned previously in a prior episode, my son brought home a Mountain Life magazine which contained an article about Sasquatches existing in Ontario, and boom, it all began. So, go grab yourself a beverage and get cozy on your couch or chair and sit back and relax. Okay, so here is the first story for today. It occurs on August the 1st, 1995, so we are in summertime. This story takes place, the nearest town is Markdale, Ontario, and it actually takes place between Markdale and Beaver Valley. Now, this entire area here has a river that runs through it, and it's wooded. It's very wooded in that specific spots, and the surrounding area is farmland. So let's get to the story. I was visiting my mother's old house located on a 100-acre maplewood lot between Markdale and the Beaver Valley in southwestern Ontario. The surrounding area is a mixture of fields and large expanses of woodlots. It was late in the evening on a warm day, perhaps around 11 p.m. A clear night with no wind. My mother's ex-common-law husband called me outside with him. However, I don't recall if it was to hear the sounds or to have a drink with him. In any case, we were outside and listening to what I can only describe as an animal screaming, a long way in the distance. The screams were certainly not human and not close to our location. I would guess the animal making the sounds was a good mile or 2 from our location, but that's only a guess. At times we strained to hear the sound. I say not human, as neither of us at any time consider them to be human. My mother's ex is an accomplished outdoorsman who has participated in a month-long wilderness course in BC. He has spent much time in the outdoors, and even he was at a loss for what could be making this noise. During our discussion about the screaming or high-pitched moan, he mentioned possibly seeing cougar tracks at the end of the driveway earlier that week, which he would not tell my mother about so as not to scare her. It is not uncommon to hear reports of cougars from time to time. However, these are often dismissed by local authorities. The local Owen Sound newspaper had a few reports of cougar sightings in the spring of 2008. South of Owen Sound. This sound we heard that evening for about half an hour did not sound anything like a big cat. While I say it didn't sound human, it certainly was a vocalization I would attribute more with a human than an animal like a cougar or a coyote. That being said, I cannot conceive how a human could make that sound. It was certainly a little unnerving. Over the years, I have listened to animal sounds such as cougars, wolves, bobcats, etc. to try and capture the sound again, but the only sound that compares to it are the believed audio recording of Sasquatch. I wish I'd had the recording device to capture the sound, but at the time we were so captivated by it that we just stood there and listened. I also don't think there was an audio recorder available. We were certainly both puzzled by the sound, which eventually grew fainter and then stopped. As a side note, some months later, maybe even a year later, my mother's ex-husband mentioned that hunters in the area have reported seeing what can only be described as a baby monkey while hunting. I believe I was close to laughing when he told me. I really thought he was pulling my leg. From what I gather, the sightings are rare and short-lived and probably out of fear of ridicule or even disbelief at what they saw. The stories are kept within a small group of people. I thought he was pulling my leg, as my family is aware of my interest in Sasquatch. I was skeptical as well as being enthralled in all Bigfoot reports. I was certainly skeptical of what he was now claiming. This is rural southern Ontario with few true wilderness areas left. How is this possible? He then went as far as to say that he had seen one of these monkeys running across the road late at night. I believe it was late night. This sighting is what caused him to talk to me about it. From what I recall, the sighting did not last more than a few seconds. As soon as he saw what he described as a small monkey, it was gone. The sighting happened within a year or two of the sounds we heard, and I believe within a few miles of the same location. I still wonder if he was pulling my leg, but I have nothing to support that he was lying to me. The recent footage of the baby Bigfoot, which appeared to be monkeys playing in a tree behind a group of campers in New York State, brought back this memory, so I included it in here as well. However, I cannot deny the sounds we heard that night, and the fact that I cannot pinpoint any known animal that could have made them. To me, it is utterly amazing that a large ape could be living in this country with very few people ever seeing it, but that's a part of the fascination and mystery. I now carry a camera with me whenever I walk the woods. Great story. So I also recall seeing the video of the baby Bigfoot swinging in a tree, and I'm trying to remember if I've seen one or two different ones of babies. I think I've seen two. One was in New York State, and you can see the people standing in the foreground watching these things, and I believe it was sunset because of the lighting. But then there was another one that was captured by timber giant Bigfoot, who is also here in Ontario. He doesn't disclose his location, but I think I have an idea where he is at, and I'm not going to say it. But in any case, he captured in an apple-growing wild field, so to say. So in other words, I think the area that he was in at one point used to have an apple grove. And now, I guess over many, many years, has overgrown and has become part of a, I don't know if I want to say park, but wildlife location. In any case, he had captured what appeared to be, it looked like, okay, from a distance, it does look like monkeys because of the length in the arms. But it looked like a young one was climbing up a tree, and there were, and you didn't notice this at the time, but there were two bigger ones and another small one higher up. And as the little one is trying to jump from one tree to another, it almost slips, and you can see an arm reach down from the opposing tree and literally grab the little one and pull him up. It was very, very interesting. Now, the amazing thing is, when Timber Giant was recording, he was talking about something totally different. He didn't even notice it. I think it was a viewer that actually noticed and started stabilizing that that one part of the video. So yeah, very interesting. Timber Giant has some pretty amazing recordings of things that he has captured. One being the big red that happened, I guess it was about 5 years ago now. but truly amazing stuff right here in Ontario. So yeah, I'm going to stop blabbing now because I think I've blabbed on for enough. So let's get on to story number 2. All right, story number 2 takes place on December 16, just west of Acton, Ontario. Now, Acton is in Halton Hills region. There's a lot of farmlands, as well as the Bruce Trail kind of jogs through there. So it's a wooded area, pretty wide, and it heads all the way from Niagara Falls up to Tobermory. So it's a fair stretch. Anyways, let's dive into this story. All right, so I am going to omit the name. I will just use the first initial of the fella's first name. All right. My name is M, and I live in the city of Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. I have been a little reluctant about reporting what had happened to me on my way to work last December 16th, 2004. I believe I had an encounter with a creature or something of this sort that I cannot explain. I was driving to work. The time would have been 5:33 a.m. when the sighting took place. I was heading down side road 20, coming up to a T intersection, making a left turn at Nassagaweya town line. Heading north, just after I made the turn, I was fumbling with my coffee cup when something caught my eye. I was startled by a large figure on the right side of the road. It was walking upright towards me, the headlights of my truck facing right at it. It had dark brown fur with brittle color in it. As I was traveling closer, it started to move off the road way into a ditch and disappeared off into the bush. This sighting took place just southwest of Acton, Ontario, Canada. When I became fascinated in Sasquatches, I had a hard time believing that they could exist here in Ontario. But with all the recent sightings or sightings I became aware of in Ontario, it is very plausible with the Bruce Trail, for instance. Let's take that as an example. It runs from Niagara Falls all the way up to Tobermory, and I believe that's about a 900-kilometer stretch from end to end. And there's beautiful, some are provincial parks, but a lot of conservation areas along the way. So just think of it as a massive wooded area situated mainly on a ridge or mountaintop. Most of it is anyways. It's going through the Canadian Shield, so it can get very rocky in some spots. But there's beautiful, beautiful conservation areas such as Rattlesnake Point. If you go up to Tobermory, there's the Bruce Peninsula section there. There's Crawford Lake, Halton Hills Conservation Area. One spot I love hiking is Silver Creek. There's just tons. I can just go on and on of all these little dotted areas that have conservation areas along the Bruce Trail. So I'm not going to go on and on, but it is very plausible that these Sasquatches are using that as a trail to head from the southern areas of Ontario to further north. Okay, let's get to the last story of the day. All right, here is the last story of the day. So this one takes place November 1st, 2005. In the nearest town is Bruce Mines, Ontario, which is located on the northern shores of Lake Huron. So we are pretty far north. And as you can see, there is nothing but wilderness all around this town. So let's get started. Okay, so before I get started, they do list the name of the street they live on, which I'm going to replace with Bleep Road. Okay, let's get started. Around 10 p.m. on Tuesday evening, November 1st, 2005, on the shores of Lake Huron on Bleep Road, where we live in the bush, my husband went outside to smoke a cigarette before going to bed. I was on my computer playing a game. All of a sudden, he comes running in and tells me to come out quickly and listen to this. My husband is 57 years old and has been a bushman hunting and fishing all his life in northern Ontario and knows all the lakes and what's in them, and all about moose calls and forest creatures, but his breath was quickened by the sounds he heard. He said he'd never heard anything like it ever. I stood at the open door for a few seconds and heard something in intervals, but I couldn't quite make out, but it definitely didn't sound like anything I have ever heard either. We live in a bungalow on Bleep Road where there is lots of swampy areas around and rocky, sloping bush terrain with plenty of cedar, pine, spruce, poplar, some hardwood, maple, oak, and lots of alders. We've seen lots of deer, moose, rabbit, partridge, fox, raccoons, beaver, black bears, timber wolf, and once in the winter, a large bobcat walked up the lane right here in front. We've seen humongous tracks in the snow behind our house in the bush in winter that my husband assumes must have been a very large moose, but we didn't see the moose. Last spring, we did see a couple of moose that were a fair size, but we didn't figure they matched the huge holes in the snow far apart, but one after the other heading in a specific direction. Anyways, getting back to last night, it sounded like maybe similar to the sounds of the mountain lion recording, but not. Almost like what a large blue heron sounds like, the squawks, but these were deeper. I listened to try to imagine the instrument, the voice box it would have to come out of, and it sounded like it came out of a large throat and jaw, not that of a smaller animal. There was heavy resonance there. No small animal could have been making that sound. It started, he said, about a quarter of a mile up the lane, right at the creek area where the heavy swamps lay, beyond which is full of beaver. Beyond that, it's rocky, treed shoreline, large and smaller rocks. There is a path we take that borders the swamp area to come out at a sandy beach area close to the tree line where we swim. We've seen lots of long grass bended or stomped down all over through that wooded area, plentiful with huge wild raspberries, and bears will do that. The sound paused a few seconds to 15 seconds apart as it came closer and closer to where we were standing. I realized that in the darkness it was a frosty, dark night. We turned off all of the outside lights and inside lights so we could see better. It would have been difficult to see even a shape as it was so dark, but the sound was very clear and very loud. I remarked to myself how loud and strong the sound was, and it had almost a human quality to it. You'd think someone was walking up the road making that sound to scare off wild animals. But we were the only ones on this lane besides our neighbors up a bit from us on this private lane that is a dead end. They are an older couple who only drive the lane to come and go from their home. The sound unnerved me enough to check my windows and doors before heading to bed. In fact, as it got closer, it was so loud that it seemed to cross the field right next to our house. I got a rush of fear and closed the windows. I think that may have scared it into heading into the bush as the sound stopped. My husband went back outside and had another smoke near the door, as he was nervous, which is unlike him, being a bushman and not the least scared of the wild. We opened several windows around the house and shone a flashlight around the yard where we last heard the sound, but saw nothing. I am so excited about this. As soon as I finish writing this, we are going to take a walk down to the creek area where there is soft earth in case we see any footprints. We'll also question our neighbors to see if they heard or saw anything, as the sound carries very well all up down the shoreline. That is all I have to report for now, but we are certainly wondering what is out there that caused this very weird sound. If it was a bobcat in heat, or people have said that mountain lions have been sighted up north here. In fact, my husband has seen firsthand a mountain lion on a road crew 20 years ago, 7 miles east of Ranger Lake, up behind Searchmont, Ontario. It was huge, full-grown male. It came out of the bush, came around the truck they were sitting in. They didn't dare get out and went back into the bush. Now, if I was going to have to decide what the sound sounded like, having never heard a mountain lion except in movies, I'd have to say that's almost what it reminded me of. We are about 2.5 hours drive east of Searchmont, it being Highway 17 North, and we being Highway 17 East. Our nearest town is about 5 miles east of us in Bruce Mines, Ontario. A friend in Theshalong, I don't know how to say that town, east of us on Highway 17 had a large bobcat come out to his front door and look in the window. So there are quite a few up here. I speak of bobcats and mountain lions because I would like to find a reason for the sound other than of a Sasquatch, as the thought of a Sasquatch scares the hell out of me. My husband, on the other hand, was very skeptical when I showed him the website, but since he's been speaking of it as though he might just be starting to think that Sasquatches do exist. If I was hearing these strange noises around my home, I would also like to think that perhaps it was a bobcat or a mountain lion making it and not a Sasquatch. That being said, I do believe in their existence, as you well know. And yes, they do live and thrive here in the province of Ontario. So, if these stories reminded you of an encounter that you may have had and would like to share, then please forward your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. I would be honored to share your story on this channel. This may even be a therapeutic experience for you to finally get it off your chest. Also, thank you all for listening to the very end. I truly appreciate it. Please hit the like button on your way out and subscribe if you're new to my channel. Have a fantastic Sunday, and we will see you all next week.